Hey, I'm Daniel Dekay from BangerTV. Today I am chatting with Phil Pendergast from KHEMMIS. We talk about their critically acclaimed latest album, Deceiver, what makes the Denver music scene so unique, and why doom is the soul music of metal. All right, Phil, man, thank you so much for joining me. It's rad to talk to you. Been listening to your band for a long while now, seen you guys live a couple times, and first time face to face. I'm really stoked to have you here.
Thanks, man. It's good to see you, Daniel. Good to be here too. I don't think we've ever really done anything with Banger before, so it's nice to get the word out in this way.
Yeah, it's awesome to have you guys on the channel. We've definitely talked about your music before, but it's good to put a face to the music. First off, I mean, congrats on all the love that Deceiver got at the end of the year, you know, best of lists and all the love that KHEMMIS was getting in the scene. But I know that the journey to getting to that point wasn't exactly the easiest or the simplest. Can you tell me a little bit about the creation process for Deceiver and the role that the pandemic played in that, and you know how you feel now reflecting back upon it?
I mean, first off, I'm super happy that anyone ever cares about anything that we ever do. It's always like really humbling to sort of create something that, if you do it right, hopefully it feels really uncomfortable to put it out there in the world. You know, like if you're honest enough about what you're creating, then it feels like something that's so personal to you that you don't want anybody to like have any control over it or critique it or anything. And I think this record was particularly difficult in that way because it was such a reflection of the time in which we were making the record. And you know, everybody I think struggles with their own ways that the pandemic has impacted them. And for a lot of people, that's been, you know, having a hard time with mental health issues. And that was something that was affecting the band quite a bit as well. You know, I think to some degree, at least, we all struggle with depression, you know, the isolation of being by yourself, not being able to get together to play music even. I think it was really hard, but at the same time, it was opening them a lot of space for us to be really honest with ourselves, to really like kind of look in the mirror and reflect on, you know, what's important to us, what kind of people we want to be going forward in our lives, what things we want to leave behind. In that way, I think, you know, to the degree that it's possible, the pandemic kind of had a positive impact, at least for me personally. This record is really just a reflection of, you know, both the physical limitations of the quarantine, where we're all sort of composing music on our own. And so by the time we got into the studio, we hadn't really had a lot of time to be going over these songs over and over and over again. So it felt really fresh, and there was still like a lot of excitement and energy that we were able to put into the recording, which is, I think, something that makes it sound the way that it does. And, you know, just that sort of reflective process that was, you know, encouraged by the isolation that we all had, led to the lyrics being really introspective and a reflection again of that like sort of desire to want to become a better, more just more like in tune person. It was a hard record to make because we had to dig deep, but at the end of the day, you know, I'll look back on this record and it's a perfect reflection of the moment in time that it was made. And so it'll stand the test of time for me for that reason.
Yeah, that's an amazing answer, and it really it brings up a lot of interesting points. Namely, I like that you talk about how, you know, when you reflect upon the record, it'll always be, you know, something that existed perfectly in this time period, and really reflects what you were going through. And I wonder, is that something that you needed to get out of your system? Is that something that was completely because of the circumstances, or was this kind of an experience that may have changed the way you approach writing music and record music from now on?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think at least to some degree, um, it lets us know that we can write and record music in this way. We don't necessarily have to be getting together all the time to play and write new stuff. Kind of gives us the confidence to know that we can do that moving forward if we have to. And then on the other hand, I don't think that the record is just what it is because of the current circumstances. Like a lot of the things that we ended up wrestling with had been brewing for a long time anyway. Like
Hmm.
it's not like all of a sudden we were suffering from depression or whatever. It's like
Hmm.
it just gave us the opportunity to be more reflective on our current circumstances. Maybe that is unique, but maybe it's not. And maybe we would have made the same record had it not been for the pandemic. But it certainly changed the way that I was thinking about writing music and what it felt like it was important to say.
Of course, it wasn't just a personal experience because the record has resonated so strongly with so many people. The deeper meaning and the deeper connection to the music was felt, I feel, across the board. So thank you for an awesome record, man.
Yeah, thank you so much for recognizing that. It's sometimes feels like metal is like one of those genres where nobody really cares about what you're saying, and that's one of the great things about it is like I can enjoy Cannibal Corpse and like the lyrics are absolutely ridiculous, and like
Yeah.
the album art is ridiculous, and you don't have to like understand what the message is, but it feels like for me that the kind of music that we want to make is something that's really driven by our hearts, and that's kind of what makes it doom. To me, is that like doom has always been, like, for lack of a better word, like the soul music of metal, I think,
Interesting.
where people are encouraged to be a little bit more emotional. And whether that's like, you know, singing about just kind of like gothic themes that are sort of romantic in a way, or whether that's, really digging deep like Yob or Neurosis or something into like the metaphysical experience of being human. Um, all that's equally valid and makes for interesting doom. And so our approach is, I think, closer to like the Yob Neurosis approach to that. But yeah, it always makes me feel good whenever anybody takes the time to like read into it enough that they understand where we're coming from, rather than just being like, oh, I don't like the aesthetics of this band, and choosing to like it or not like it. It means a lot more if people can connect to the message.
You bring up something interesting. You bring up, aesthetics of a band, and also, right out the gate, you throw out the name Cannibal Corpse there. And, that's a band that if you remove the logo from an album cover, you can almost, 99 out of 100 times, that's a Cannibal Corpse album cover. And I
Yeah.
love when bands are able to achieve that, to be aware of what their image is and what the aesthetic is for the band. And that's something that KHEMMIS has done very, very, very well. I'm wondering if you can tell me a little bit about who Sam Turner is, your history with Sam, and how important that visual accompaniment is to the overall KHEMMIS recipe.
One of my favorite parts about doing the band is commissioning really cool artwork. So like we always try and get stuff that we're all really passionate about. If it's a t-shirt design or the album covers, it has to be something that we all think is cool and like representative of the band. And Sam is kind of the driving force for what the overall aesthetic is, because we've used him for all of the official albums. The thing that sort of brought us to him was that we were all just like talking about perusing our dad's record collections as kids, that we all realized that we had the same experience looking at like the Molly Hatchet album covers, especially like the one that has Death Dealer on it, which is like this guy on a horse with an axe.
Instantly recognizable.
Yeah, yeah. He did art for a bunch of sci-fi and fantasy stuff, novels. But anyway, the thing that we were realizing was like, whether or not you liked that album, you instantly remembered that band. So we thought it would be really cool if we had some like Frank Frazetta style art that sort of accomplished a similar thing, that would draw people in without having to hear the music at all and be like, oh, what is this? And maybe it's sort of like a little bit mysterious. We knew that Sam could do this kind of artwork. He's a local guy here in Denver. He's been doing artwork for the brewery that Zach helps run, True Brewing. Our first t-shirt was like the wizard that you see like pouring a Coors Banquet into a glass.
So great.
Yeah. And we were like, it'd be really cool if we had an Eddie, like Iron Maiden's mascot, if we had like a character that was going to like follow us as a band, and we could like use as a uniting sort of vision for everything, and like put them in different situations and scenarios and make a story out of it. When we get to each album, basically like I'll have a conversation with Sam and maybe draw him some sketches of something that I'm imagining. And we'll talk about like where the storyline is with the characters, we just talked forever about it. Like I wrote him like a probably like 6-page short story for the new record album cover. I didn't feel like the look of the central character was quite right. And so I was like, the only way to get it right is to write like an extensive backstory for this character and like where he's at right now, what's going on. And then like Sam was like, oh, okay, I get it. And then he fucking nailed it. So it's something that I like to be really involved with, and that I hope people, even if they just see it and they're like, that's badass, and then they want to buy the record, that's cool. If people want to like get all the records and sit there like we did with our dad's record collections and like imagine what the story is, even cooler. If you want to write like fan fiction about it, have at it. Like it can be its own thing that exists separate from the music, but it also helps make the themes of the records more obvious as well.
The self-awareness of your own vision is so cool to me, like beyond the music on a visual level. Like this isn't just commissioning art. This isn't just like, hey, like a lot of people send their record to an artist that they like and they're like, hey, here's our record. This is what we want, sort of do something for us. And maybe there's a draft or two that go back and forth. Like, no, you're writing entire fiction backstories for characters and being like, no, Sam, like this is what I wanted. Like you're so aware of exactly how you want it to look. And I find that sort of tends to be a theme with this band, visually, but also like tonally and sonically, your sound. There's been a progression and a storyline to the way your sound has developed. And finding the people you like to work with and keeping them close also seems to be a theme. Tell me about working with Dave Otero, how you originally decided to work with him and what he continues to bring to the table for KHEMMIS.
Dave is fantastic. I mean, honestly, he's like a fifth member of the band, basically. He's like the guy that we all trust so much because he's both a friend and he's like very much a producer in the classic sense of that word. He's not afraid to make his opinion known. He'll just straight up be like, I don't like that riff, or like, this song doesn't make any sense. We have to figure out like how to arrange it differently, or he'll be like, those vocal parts are garbage, like we have to go back to the drawing board on this, and that's what we love him for. It's that like detailed orientedness and ability to step back from what it is that we're making and listen to it that makes him a great producer. All of the songwriting we've had since is like, every song should take you on a journey. Every song should tell a story. And every song should be, as long or as short as it needs to be to feel like it's taking you to that place. Learning those lessons was really important, I think, in our development as a band. And since then, he's just been there to support whatever our vision has been for each record. And so, I love working with somebody who trusts us and our vision, but is there to like elevate it and make it the better version of what it is that we're going for.
It's the exact role that a producer should have. It's clear that you guys found your person. And I love that you continue to work with them. You're not one of those bands that like, we're going to go with this buzz name producer, then this buzz name producer, then we're going to switch it up and our buddy's going to produce it. Like, some bands do that and it works for them and it gives each record its own identity. But to find that person that's on the same page as you every step of the way and still able to give you that outside critique, that's huge. I'm glad you guys have found that. That's super cool. I like that you mentioned he's worked with other local bands, because where you're from is something I definitely want to talk about. Denver might not be considered one of the classic American hotbeds for heavy metal and underground music, but in recent times, it's been able to cultivate and sustain an incredibly diverse spread of heavy metal bands like Havoc, Primitive Man, Wayfarer, Blood Incantation, Green Druid. Like the list goes on and on. Is there something in the water there that we don't know about these days, or is there something deeper to being such a hot spot for metal right now in that city?
I personally think that like of any place right now in North America, that we probably have the most like encouraging metal scene. Like there's just something about where we are that encourages people to be unafraid to be the band that they want to be, to create the music that they want to be, and that's led to people producing a lot of great records. Like to your list, I'd add like Dreadnought, Of Feather and Bone, Spectral Voice. All these bands are like totally different from each other.
Hmm.
None of them sound at all alike. There's no like Denver sound. Other than that, none of those bands are like strictly playing to like a genre definition. You know, all of them are doing something creative and unique. And that's the atmosphere that Denver has facilitated. Everybody goes to each other's shows. There's competition, but not in the way that like a lot of people think about that. There's
Hmm.
competition in like pushing each other to make better records because you're like, God damn, that last Wayfarer record is so good, you know, and like that's encouraging. Then you're like, ah, shit, we gotta like step up our game. You know, people don't just go to death metal shows or just go to hardcore shows or whatever. It's like everybody is cross pollinating
Hmm.
and supporting each other. It's just a unique situation. In a lot of other big cities that have well established metal scenes, it's much more competitive in the sense that like you want to succeed at the expense of somebody else. But that's not the case here. And nobody's really trying to outdo each other in their unique lane. You know, it's like, yeah, Primitive Man is the heaviest band in town. Nobody's going to try and fuck with that. You know, like Blood Incantation can be like the weird cosmic band that they are, and nobody else is going to try and steal that. You know, everybody's got their place and everybody loves everything that people are doing for the most part.
It's really cool that, the cross genre pollinating of you guys, gassing each other up and championing each other. That's really cool to hear. It's such a scene full of camaraderie, and it's not just about one style of music. It's not just about the New York hardcore scene. It's really about the Denver music scene in general. That's super cool to me. Let's talk about cover songs. You have put out some brilliantly doomed up versions of classic tunes from a wide spectrum of genres too. And unlike some bands who do covers and are known for doing them incredibly faithfully, you guys truly make them your own. Can you tell me a little bit about your philosophy when it comes to not only picking the song you're going to cover, but also how you go about arranging said cover?
I think we're all of the shared philosophy that like there's no point in covering a song if you don't do something new with it, like, and that what you do with it should be like honoring some aspect of the original song. Like you shouldn't just pick a song to do it differently from the way it is, because that song, if it's good enough for you to want to cover it, is probably like a classic or good enough in its own right for people to want to hear it that way, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And like you're not going to improve on like how Dio did a Dio song. Like it's just not possible, right? Our job as interpreters of these songs is to put it through our own sort of lens and say, you know, like we've been gifted the bones of this track that we know is awesome, and how do we sort of reimagine it and pretend that it's like a song that we wrote. We want to be faithful to it in the sense that we're not losing the message of that song or like the vibe that it's trying to get across, but we're trying to take the parts that are most resonant with what we do and emphasize those.
I mean, and specifically, I'll speak to the Alice in Chains song because the first time I heard it, it like actually blew my mind. It's something so familiar, yet something so new. You put it so well. You take the original elements of the song that resonate with the listener, but do it in your own way. You don't lose that original charm. Like those vocal harmonies and the melodies are all there, but you like really made it your own. Dude, keep flying that flag. You guys do it very well.
Yeah, thanks. Hopefully we can do something as cool as a Merciful Fate medley someday.
Right?
Yeah.
Let's talk gear for a minute. I'm a gearhead myself, and you guys have a wicked sound. It's instantly recognizable when I'm listening to a KHEMMIS record. Let's start with those Dunable Flying Vs. I've been eyeing those for a while. Those are some real sexy guitars. Tell me about those.
Yeah. Sasha, who makes those, he's the guitar player for Intronaut, if people don't know. He's been doing the Dunable guitar brand for, you know, probably about 10 years now, honestly. You know, the Flying V thing has kind of been our thing, like, since pretty much day one. But it was really cool that Sasha was making a V-shaped guitar that was a Fender scale length, because that extra, like, almost inch of fretboard, when you're tuning down as low as we are, is really helpful for tuning stability.
Which is what? Are you guys like B or C? Where are you?
It's like, it's C standard with a dropped low string.
Nice.
So it's drop A sharp. Having that extra inch makes a huge difference for when you really hammer that low note. It doesn't like do that huge warble. It just like locks in a little bit better, has just enough looseness still. He'll do whatever you want. I was like, this is exactly the guitar I want. I drew him a picture of it, sent it to him, and the guitar I got back looks exactly like the picture. So nothing like having a custom guitar that like
Seriously.
you can just look forward to playing every day.
I want to ask you about something that you didn't say, but Ben said, and I think it's really interesting about the sound of your band.
Sure.
He says, if it feels like Iron Maiden trapped in a tar pit, then we've done it right.
Yeah.
I think that's really interesting because pretty much like everything we've talked about, the sound of the band and the vibe of the band. It's obvious that you guys really resonate with bands like Priest and Maiden and Metallica more than you do with like traditional doom bands. Yeah. So I'm kind of interested on where the inspiration for that tar pit element comes from, because none of the bands that I just mentioned have a tar pit vibe to them.
I mean, first of all, you're right. Our shit, when it comes to classic stuff, is very much like classic rock, southern rock. The other thing is that we all like black and death metal. Like that's like the new records that we listen to are always black and death metal records. And like there's something about like the filthiness of like the down-tuned shit in those genres that we try and capture to some degree. We all are also fans of Neurosis, this like usually sort of southern feeling, sludgy, very heavy, down-tuned kind of stuff that's slow and emotional. And that's kind of the main way that we're sort of approaching, doom metal, is through that lens rather than from like a Candlemass angle or something. And, two of the guys in the band are southern. There's like some molasses in the blood that makes it appealing to play slow sometimes. There's a lot of stuff that's like very rock and roll and very kind of southern feeling in the spirit of what we do. And that comes from like ZZ Top or the Allman Brothers, a cosmic gumbo, if you will, of like all these different things that we've got kind of circulating.
Between Cosmic Gumbo and Molasses in the Blood, I think that your quote about the sound of your band is now officially cooler than Ben's Maiden Trapped in a Tar Pit comparison. That is awesome.
I didn't steal the Cosmic Gumbo thing at all from anything.
Completely original thoughts right here with Phil.
Thoughts with Phil.
Thoughts with Phil. That's a new banger show.
A new recurring segment.
Let's talk.
Okay.
Do you agree with calling, the broad stroke title of KHEMMIS the Doom Band?
I never really have. I think I feel more comfortable doing that with this record than I have in the past. Like, I think this is a doom record. Like, as long as your definition of doom is wide enough to encompass, like, having a Melodeath riff be the first riff that you hear on the album. I think the band is a heavy metal band. If you've seen us live, like, it's a rock and roll show. We're a rock and roll band. It's an energetic show. It should be emotional. That's the thing that makes us unique, is that we're not just a doom band. We're operating with the spirit of heavy metal, and some of the tools are classic rock. We sort of built our own hot rod out of these things, and we're driving it around trying to spread the gospel.
Again, it's been like the theme of our entire chat is how self-aware of what you want your band to be and what it is for you. And some people don't respond well to the genre question. They're like, I don't know, just whatever. We just write whatever comes out, and that's what it is. We like lots of music. Like, we like classic music and we like new music. Nah, man, like, exactly what you guys are, and exactly what you want to be and how you want to be perceived. And for some bands, that's the biggest struggle, album to album. So I commend you on that, man. Your insight into your own band is killer. And I think that's why your band does so well, is you guys know exactly what you are, and where you wear your influences on your sleeve for those who want to listen hard enough. It's all right there for the listener.
I think it's something that hopefully will give us longevity too, because each of the records, to me, like, I think Absolution is kind of like a proto-metal, like Blue Cheer, sort of early Sabbath. Hunted is a little bit more of like this classic rock meets like Electric Wizard meets Judas Priest kind of vibe. Desolation's way more like Merciful Fate, 80s Priest, Iron Maiden kind of thing. The new record's more Paradise Lost meets Catatonia, Melodeath. Who knows what the direction for the next record will be, but like, I hope that it gives us enough facets that we can like rotate the gem a little bit, and you'll get a new perspective on it with each record. It's going to be familiar because it's the same ideology behind it, the same people making the music, but it's going to be unique from the last record because we're going to consciously come at it from a different mindset and place. So hopefully we can continue to deliver that, and if we can't, I think we should hang up the hat and not make a new record. Like it's that important to me. I think that what we do is something fresh each time, and continues to sort of like elaborate on the story of KHEMMIS and give a fuller picture of who we are as people and as musicians. That's our responsibility as a band.
Killer answer. And you just named a dozen bands that are all wildly different from each other, yet you can find the elements from each and apply it to your sound. And every time it comes out sounding uniquely like KHEMMIS. And that's bottom line, I think, the key to success with your band. And can't wait to hear where you guys take it next.
I think we've got, like I said, a rescheduled tour going on in June. Hopefully going to do some stuff out east. Hopefully maybe make it up to Canada. We've got something really big planned in the fall that we can't talk about yet. That's next for KHEMMIS. More music, more shows. Fuck yeah.
Hell yeah. Check out the new KHEMMIS record, Deceiver, out now on Nuclear Blast. This was an awesome chat, man. I appreciate you taking the time to be so thorough with your answers. It's real good to connect with you after being a fan of your band for a long time. Phil, thank you so much, man. Appreciate you chatting.
Yeah, of course.